Hello everyone, welcome to the Transform Your Inner Critic Masterclass. I'm Lucht and I'm going to be your guide through this evening's masterclass. Just a few things before we start. I am going to be checking the chat box throughout. So if you've got any questions, anything that comes up, I want this to be as interactive as possible. And for those of you who've been on a course with me before, you know that I could quite easily talk for 2 hours straight without pausing or taking a breath. That's not fun for me or for you. So please be interactive. Please write some questions. Please share your thoughts and feelings within the chat box, whatever comes up for you. And then I can interact with that too. I'm going to be answering any big burrito questions at the end. So if there is something you want to save until the end, and you can either ask me directly or put it in the chat box, then I will go back and follow that too. There's quite a lot of information in this evening's class. I want you to approach it like you don't have to take it all in one go. This is a layered experience. This is something that you're going to ingest and take in over time. You're not meant to get this all in one go. This is a culmination of 20 years worth of my own personal experience with my inner critic, and I'm still on my own personal journey with that too. So please don't think you're going to nail it after one night, okay? I know for those of you who have the perfectionist virus, you'll be thinking, but I wanted one course and I wanted to all gone and all sorted afterwards. And I'm afraid that's not how it works. All right, we're just going to keep it real. So before we start, has anybody got any questions or queries that they'd like to ask? Please put it in the chat box. No. Awesome. So before we get into all of the detail of this class, I would like you to here we are. I would like you to put your hands on something like a table or a chair or next to you, something that is solid. Okay. And I would like you to close your eyes. Take a big deep breath in through the nose and a soft, easy exhale out through the mouth. And I want you to feel the contact of your hands with this surface. Take in how it feels. What do you notice? Keep bringing your awareness and your attention to how your hands feel on this surface. Feel the strength of what you're touching, the stability. Feel either the coolness or the texture. And notice how, with your hands on this table, taking in all of its information, that there really isn't any other space for thinking about other things. Your awareness is in this present moment, right here, right now. So if you ever need a moment just to center or to ground, this is the easiest practice you can do. It's called somatic experiencing, where your body finds itself present in the now moment, in this space that you're in. Okay. Take a big deep breath. Let it go and open your eyes. How did that feel? Was that good? Have you now joined us back in this present moment? Remember, please please share in the comments. It's really lovely to hear as we go through this. Okay, so welcome. Can everyone see the screen okay? Yeah. So, like I said right at the beginning, you're going to need to watch and listen to this more than once to get the fullness of this information. There is a lot that we're going to be covering this evening. There's a lot of layers. There's a lot. So what I want you to do is just take what resonates and then completely discard the rest. Okay. And next time that you come to listen to this or watch this, then there'll be other bits and pieces that you take in and it resonates and something else will click and shift for you. That's how we're designed to learn. Otherwise, we go into sensory overload and we shut down and then nothing happens. So just go in with this, with the knowledge and understanding that you're not meant to get it all, and just take the bits that feel the best, okay? So my first question for you is, what do I want for myself? There's a reason why you've joined this class tonight, and there's probably a reason because there's a gap between what you're currently experiencing and what you actually want. And so I'm curious as to what that gap is and what it is that you actually want. You don't have to share if you don't want to, but please feel free if you want to. This is really about finding more of a connection with how you're feeling and what you're wanting and why you've shown up tonight. Okay. So nobody said it better than Einstein himself in one of the most helpful quotes in the history of everness. No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it, which means we basically perpetuate the same cycles over and over and over again with the same thoughts and behaviors that fuel those experiences. If we want to change something within our reality, we need to change the way that we show up and approach it. And that comes from the thoughts that we have and the feelings that we generate from those thoughts. And it's time to break the cycle and create new options and new possibilities for ourselves. So what's going on? Why are we here? Why are any of us having this experience with an inner critic? I think as part of who we are, really, it would be wonderful if we didn't even have to deal with any of this. But here we are. So how do we get here? Well, we are conditioned beings. All of us are conditioned to be and think and behave in a certain way. And for many of us, we have been conditioned to be self-deprecating, to be martyrs, to believe that we are helpless, to believe that to grow, we must be critical of ourselves and of others. We compare ourselves against each other. We believe that our thoughts cannot be controlled by ourselves. And highly sensitive people are especially prone to loud, jumbled inner critic that feels like it's not just your thoughts, but every single person's thoughts too, probably pets as well, and the postman and whoever else seems to come into contact with your environment. Does that resonate? So what we're going to do now is identify and understand what is an inner critic and how it happens, what's going on physiologically, scientifically within our bodies, create an understanding so that once we have that understanding, we can then understand a little bit more how it all pieces together. Okay. So how do we identify what an inner critic is? Now, the first thing I want to say about this is I want to make sure that we're not labeling any part of our experience or ourselves as bad. You know, that's ironic because we want to label something as bad because we want to get far away from it as possible. And yet the inner critic wants to label something as bad. So what I want to do is encourage each of you to think of your inner critic as something that is trying to get your attention, and to draw it in like a beloved friend and make friends with it and talk to it and experience it, and then let it know that it's not valid, rather than make it something that's bad and push it away. Because the more we resist something, the more it persists. The more we try and numb something, push it away and make it not valid, the bigger it gets, the greater it gets, and the more intense it becomes. So how do we identify our inner critic? Well, the inner critic is the types of thoughts that we think. Where do they come from? Whose voice is this? What feelings do these thoughts create? You can tell what an inner critic or thought, because it generally always, if not all, it always creates a sort of discomfort, unease, or shameful or attacking experience within us. The aim of the inner critic actually is to keep you safe. Did you know? It doesn't have a bad intention. The inner critic wants to keep you comfortable and happy and safe. And yet it's like somebody who says to you, I am really, really critical of you only because I love you and I care. You're like, those two things should not be together. They are not part of the same experience. And yet that is the conditioning that we've had within our society, that if you're going to be loved, it does come with a whole heap of criticism at the same time. So what's the point of all of this? Why are we having this conversation in the first place? What is our inner critic? Well, the reason there is an inner critic in the first place is because there's an inner child inside of us who has been criticized, and we've learnt this level of this experience of talking to ourselves from other people. This is a conditioned response. This is not our true behavior. This is not our true parts of who we are. So when we hear the inner critic, for me, it's a signal that says, hang on, there's some parts of ourselves inside that need some attention. This inner child that's saying, hey, I did not get a need met, or I was very criticized as a kid and I need some attention. We're conditioned to behave a certain way to be loved and accepted. So that also is, the inner critic is saying to you, make sure you act this way, otherwise you will not be safe. Make sure you act this way, otherwise nobody will love you. Make sure that you don't do anything that could be seen as outside of what your caregivers or the people around you have said is okay. And so this inner critic is always giving you instruction to keep you in a certain way. And it's interesting because we think its aim is to keep us safe, but actually it's just showing us the greatest contrast of where we need love and where we want to show ourselves kindness and compassion and care. It's also showing us what we don't want. How many times have you ever listened to your inner critic and gone, you were so right? Have you ever had that? You shamed me into really realizing you were right. It doesn't quite work like that. What it is once we bring awareness to our inner critic, we realize that actually these are the thoughts, these are the feelings, these are the experiences that we don't want. And also the inner critic is part of this societal construct, which is around social norms, what is and isn't allowed, what should and shouldn't be okay, what we can and can't do. And it's either about fitting in or being cast out. That's what our inner critic is saying. Do this or else, be this or else. You should be doing this, or the greatest, most horrific thing will happen to you, which is you will be cast out. Does that resonate? None of that is actually true. That's the irony of all of this. And yet the feelings that come with the criticism, this constant criticism, is so hard that we think it's just part of who we are. It gets mumbled and jumbled within our actual true thoughts that we no longer find it able to discern truth and criticism. We think it's one and the same. Our inner critic normally shows up in two types of categories, which are inferior thoughts and superior thoughts. Inferior thoughts are ones of worry, low self-love, low self-esteem, jealousy, guilt, hurt, fear, attachment, martyrdom. Doubt is another big one. And superior thoughts are intolerance, impatience, arrogance, manipulation, attack, anger, judgment, that kind of thing. So we often think of an inner critic as keeping us down and small, okay? But actually it's the opposite as well, which is this arrogance, the narcissism. Those narcissists have an inner critic that is really loud, just as much as they are a narcissist and a wounded empath are the same. They're on the same line, but they're just at opposite ends of the same stick. Does that make sense? So if you're going to take anything away from understanding more about how the inner critic works, this would be the slide. This would be the information for you to start to identify when you're being duped by your inner critic, when your negative thoughts are taking control of you, is when they can fit, when you can identify and fit one of them into any of these categories. It sounds like I'm not good at this. I cannot do anything right. I'll never be able to. You're rubbish. I told you that you shouldn't have tried. You are pathetic. It's always your fault. I must protect myself. So those would be examples of negative, inferior thought forms. Can you give me any examples of superior ones? Can you imagine? Something like, I told you I was better than that other person. Why didn't you listen to me? I'm always right. Have you ever heard somebody say that? You're useless. Why don't you just listen to me? That kind of experience. We've all had it. We've had bosses, partners, parents. Some of us have had, not me personally, but children also who talk to us like that. And this is quite an inflammatory slide that I've put in here, but I wanted you to understand that when we are listening to our inner critic, we are suffering. It is a form of suffering. And within this suffering, there are certain core beliefs, and these are, we believe that change is not possible. We believe that we are these thoughts, and these thoughts are true. We believe that we are powerless, and we don't know how it feels to be unconditionally loved by ourselves or by anybody else. When the inner critic is loud, we don't have a healthy relationship with love. Are we addicted? I have been addicted to suffering and to my thoughts for the best part of 40 years. So what does that mean? It means you're overwhelmed with emotional hormones that flood our bodies and our brains, which peak and trough, peak and trough. Can you relate to that? times when you've had floods of real anger or stress or fear or doubt or worry or anxiety, and then it drops and you're feeling tired and exhausted and worried, and then it goes up and comes down and goes up and comes down, and this deep peaking and troughing is challenging, because what we don't learn, and these are patterns that we've had since we were children, what we don't learn is what calm, regulated, easeful nervous system feels like. So we start to feel that calm feels uncomfortable, and calm can feel so subtle that it almost feels like it feels numb. And that's not to confuse the fact that sometimes we have shut down completely because it has got too challenging. So that's different to what we're talking about this evening. So we create chaos in order to feel something. And this is completely unconscious, because when you become aware and conscious of it, you're less likely to want to invite chaos into your life on purpose, because actually calm and regulated and easeful feels lovely. It feels joyful. But we tend to create, like it's like, not that I have done this for years and years, but I can imagine it's like watching an episode of EastEnders. There's always something going on, and as we're watching EastEnders, you can feel that there's an emotional reaction that's happening, and then you're flooded with these feelings, and then you're talking about it the next day, and as you're talking about it the next day, you're flooded with these feelings and emotions again. It's pretty much the same thing, but we are just doing this to our own lives. So our emotions become our focus, and they become external. So we're looking for people, places, and things for stimulation. So our Facebook group, our Instagram, the news, all of these things are creating these big waves of emotions inside of us that flood the body with hormones. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And then we have a certain set of thoughts that come with those experiences. And the thoughts and the feelings are what we become addicted to because of these great waves of emotion. Can you see yourself in that experience? It's how you can, there's something called love addiction, and it's the same sort of thing. And addiction in general really comes into this space here when we're taught how to, as children, how to learn to nourish and care for ourselves and have healthy relationship to ourselves and our thoughts. And so as an example, this addiction to love, we get so flooded with oxytocin and all these love hormones when we're first in a relationship, that it can feel really addictive. And there's an actual condition that says people get addicted to the first honeymoon phase of a relationship for this exact reason. So yeah, I know people that thrive on the drama and chaos addiction. Absolutely. And what's really interesting is once you become aware of it, you'll start to notice that actually, even when you're at work or when you're with the other mums and you go, did you know? Did you hear? Did you hear what that person said to me? That's the same thing. It's a flood of these feelings and emotions. We want to be validated, but it's also part of feeding the drama and the chaos. So my question is, do you know what feeling good feels like inside of you? When you're not using caffeine, alcohol, drugs, food, sex, shopping, when we're not using any of these things to try and find a sensation inside of us that feels comfortable, do you know what feeling good feels like? Yeah. Peaceful and calm. I like it. as we go through this program this evening, what I want you to do is hold on to those thoughts and those experiences that feel peaceful and calm. Take yourself back to the places that feel like that and embody yourself into those moments. Bring them into your present moment awareness. Make it like a cinema, a picture, a feeling, an experience, that anytime that you're starting to feel overwhelmed, you can take yourself back to the moment where you felt love, where you felt peaceful, where you felt calm. And I'll talk more about this in a minute, but what's really interesting is that our brains are so stupid in one way that we can literally tell them whatever we want to, and they will take it as a fact and start to believe it and make it a reality. We are so highly programmable and conditionable and malleable that we get to choose what we focus on with practice. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but with practice. So when you're talking, Christina, you're talking about peaceful and calm, you can picture it and then stand inside that vision, stand inside that experience, feel it, experience it, wrap it around you like a warm blanket. Hold it close. Okay, we'll talk more about that. So often we spend our time focusing on what's bothering us. And I will talk, I haven't made a slide about this actually, but it occurs to me it's really important to also talk about bypassing our feelings and just focusing on the good stuff too. But for a moment, let's focus on this. We focus a lot on what's bothering us. So what do you do with the thoughts when they bother you? Do they ever stop? Are they the first thing you think about when you wake up in the morning? Are they the last thing you think about when you go to bed at night? Are they in your mind all of the time? Even if it's not at the forefront, maybe you've pushed them out, but they're rumbling, you can feel them. There's something happening that feels agitated, even as a low rumble, or it's loud. I have all of those experiences, from a low rumble to it being really, really loud when I'm triggered or very agitated. All of those experiences are something that's normally bothering me. And I've often thought that it was something outside of me that was bothering me, but actually it's normally my relationship to what's bothering me that's bothering me. We'll talk more about that. So, and what demands are your thoughts making of you? Do you know? What are your thoughts making you do? Making you be, making you think, making you act, making you say. If I could just be a bit thinner, I'd be happy. If I could be in a relationship, I'd feel complete. If only they would change their behavior, I would be happy. That's one of the biggest pitfalls. It's a trap. What demands are your thoughts making of you? Stay small. Don't say what you need. Be big. Take up space. You're more important than they are. Can you see how it fits into either the inferior or superior thoughts? I'm unhappy with where I am now. I don't know if that's actually an inner critic thought, Gemma. Yep.
You said when we say that to ourselves, what are we telling ourselves? I think you said that, oh, if I could just be thinner, I'd be happy. If I could be in a relationship, I'd feel complete. So yeah, my brain's telling me that I'm unhappy with where I am now.
Oh, I see.
You're teaching yourself that wherever you are in this moment, you're not happy.
Yes, that. Absolutely. It's another trap, isn't it? Because like I was mentioning before, within that, we feel helpless. We feel hopeless. We feel like nothing's ever going to change and that we are powerless to create change. Yeah. Or what we want to do is go in like a massive bulldozer and create mass chaos, mass drama, shake it all up and then leave and just go, whew, that felt better. Trail of destruction after you. Is this resonating with you? Stress. Oh my God, stress is one of the greatest factors of influencing our inner critical thoughts. We are constantly living in survival mode, and we'll talk more about the function of that on the brain in a minute. And when you're in survival mode, which is that fight or flight, freeze and fawn place, there's a rush of adrenaline. And even if you think you're trying your hardest to get out of there, if you're having a survival mode feeling like your life is, you've got deadline after deadline, you've got a to-do list that needs to happen, you're really moving and going quickly after everything, then you will be getting adrenaline, and this adrenaline rushes the body and it stays in the body and it struggles to leave the body, especially with my nutritionist hat on, especially if you've got a stagnant liver, it will be flooding your body and won't be able to leave. So it will get stuck. And we can become really addicted to this rush. You know, when you're like, I'm on the go, I'm going, I'm busy, go. And I know some of you that is not your experience, but I also know some of you that is your experience, where you are on the go all of the time and the adrenaline keeps coming. And so this thought that we have is, it's better to feel something rather than nothing. That's where we get addicted to it. That's where it's reinforced, right? The addiction to these thoughts and this experience, the rush of adrenaline. If you're somebody that's on the go all of the time, then it's likely that you're somewhere, somehow, somebody is going to say, well, they're indispensable, or they are the people that I need in my life because they get everything done. They are the ones that do everything. So you'll be getting some sort of reward as a signal that this is a behavior that should keep continuing. And what's really interesting about the stress response is just thinking about problems. Just the thought of thinking about a problem can turn on the stress response, which will flood the body with adrenaline. And so we end up in this loop, this cycle, never-ending cycle, chasing our tail and keep wanting this rush. And that's when you have these peaks and troughs that we were talking about earlier. And it can be that you need alcohol to help you go to sleep because you're constantly on the go, or you might need sugar to help you have some energy because you're depleted, because your adrenaline is running the whole of your system. It might be that you use other substances to help you with going to sleep or staying awake throughout the day. And it's all down to the thoughts that we think, the thoughts that we're holding about ourselves. For example, in a stressful situation, is this inferior and superior thoughts? I must, I should, I have to, I ought to, I need to. Can you feel it? I'm starting to hyperventilate already and I'm not even doing anything. I don't even think those kind of thoughts normally either. I can still feel the sensation of these thoughts rumbling through my body as I'm talking about them. It's like they have a life of their own, isn't it? They want to create chaos. So just as an example, and I thought I would try to find a little picture of somebody who looked really sad, but it was so sad that I thought maybe a dog would be better. It's a stress thought. I'm not okay. I'm alone. I have to. I should to. I need to. Not enough time. I can't do this. I'm stuck. I don't have any control. Yeah, not enough time. That's such a big one. It's a trap. So let's talk about brain waves. This is an important thing to understand, because we often think that there's just awake and asleep, right? But if we really start to understand the brain and its function, then we understand that there are different places and positions we can manipulate ourselves to be in. So you don't need to understand what these mean per se, like the words exactly, but when you're in a beta brainwave or high beta brainwave, you are super busy. You are integrating millions and millions of information around you all of the time. It is like you are in a car and you're in 60 to 100 miles an hour and you're going, go, 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 go. What's really interesting is this is when your analytical mind is on fire. And it's not in a productive way on fire. It is firefighting. It's in survival mode. And the analytical mind keeps us in survival mode. So it says you can't, or too much, you need to, you must do, you have to, you should do. And it's the lowest frequency of brainwave that you can have. It is basically that. The next step is not functioning. It is the survival brainwave to keep you going. What's really interesting about the beta and high beta is change is really difficult to be created when you're in this stage. So if you've ever been in this, oh my God, I hate myself, I hate my body, and you're thinking, I need to lose weight. I'm going to go start, I'm going to create new behavior and I'm going to go start, and then I'm going to do it for a week, and then I can't keep it up because I'm constantly stressed and I'm trying to fit everything in. And then you're like, I can't do it. And then you quote unquote fail, which reinforces the inner critic thought form. And then which reinforces this idea that you can't do it and reinforces the state of being in the beta brainwave state. So to create change, we want to be in the alpha and theta brainwaves. These are very programmable states. These are the brainwave states that help us rewire our thoughts and beliefs. And what's beautiful about being in these brainwaves is that each time you do something, it gets easier and easier, and it gets more and more ingrained. So when you're in theta and alpha, the aim is to move out of that survival mode. And survival mode, like I said, the inner critic is at its loudest in survival mode. So we want to be moving into theta and alpha brainwaves in order to find more peace within ourselves and our connection to our inner critic. And so how do we become totally relaxed? How do you become totally relaxed? How do you find ways to find peace and relaxation within your day as a massive priority, because it has a 100% correlation to how you feel within yourself and the thoughts that you think, and therefore the life that you create. It is that correlated. So there are things that we can do, and I'm going to talk much more about the types of things that we can do, but I want you to, the way that the brain waves in the theta and alpha work to create programs that work in our favor is that they like to see yourself doing something that you want to do. If you've ever been through a stressful thought, even before it's happened, you have played it out in your mind 50,000 different ways. And you have imagined every single worst case scenario that you could possibly have come up with. Am I right? The worst case scenario, like people die in these worst case scenarios. They're not coming back. They've lost the plot, or somebody's been killed, or something's happened, or, you know, it really is an intense experience, but you've visualized it, you've seen it, you've experienced it, you've felt all the feelings and the emotions that go with this. So what I want you to do is do the exact same thing, the same process, but do it for imagining and visualizing something that you want to create, imagining and visualizing something that makes you feel good. You can imagine and visualize something concrete that's already happened if that's something that's available to you. But for some of us, that's not been available. So we just use our imagination. Because like I said, the brain is stupid in some way. You can tell it whatever you want to, and it will believe whatever you imagine and whatever you think and whatever you feel. So connect to the imaginable future as a feeling reality. Feelings are the key here. The feeling reality in this now moment. So the brain is made up of billions of neurons, billions that transmit signals by sensory input or by their neighboring neurons. You may have heard the saying, neurons that fire together wire together. Yeah, so neurons have this electrical chemicals that send messages around the body. And when a neuron is activated, it sends a signal down its axon to its neighboring neuron. Now, what's really interesting about that is that there's a gap. It's like smaller than a hair's width between neurons. There's a gap. And when the neuron is activated, the synapses, which are at the end of the neuron, they touch briefly. And it's for a microsecond to pass a message across. So it's just a quick flash. They are never properly always connected. And this means that the brain is completely malleable and can create new thoughts and new neural pathways at any moment. And what activates the connection of what thoughts and experiences you create are done by neurotransmitters and hormones. These are the things that activate the message connection, the jump, the thing that brings the neurons together. And there are over 100 different kinds of neurotransmitters, such as endorphins for pain control and pleasure, and dopamine for excitement and learning and pleasure. So you can see how important these hormones are just by those two. If you want to learn something, if you want to relax, if you want to find excitement or pleasure in something, then these are the tools we need to create the changes and the connections within our thoughts. So there are two types of messengers. There are the neurotransmitters, which are quick and fast, like a text message. It arrives instantly. And then there are hormones which travel through the blood and they linger. It's like slow. It's like you have got a letter and you've written it out. You've got a stamp. You've put the stamp on top of the letter. You've licked it and then you've posted it off and then the other person receives it. It's slow. And what's interesting about the hormones is the body remembers this message for longer. Neuroplasticity refers to the brain's ability to adapt. So every time the brain processes new information, neurons fire, new pathways form, and the brain alters its shape and structure. This is the key to all of this experience. It's all in the science. Whatever happens in terms of the thoughts that we think and what we focus on and what we allow into our life experience is the information we allow in is what the neurons fire together. So you are never stuck. You might believe you are stuck in a situation, in a certain thought pattern, but it's not true. Our brains, even as adults, even as the oldest person, still their brain is neuroplastic. It's just the way that the neurons are made. So I'll add one more thing in about this, and it's about women's hormones. Men have hormones too, okay, but it's significantly easier to identify in terms of a woman's hormone cycle. Because many women have thoughts that change throughout their cycle. Midway through, you're normally clear thinking, and then by the end and then the beginning, it can feel really cloudy and really reactive. Now, the only reason I'm bringing this to our awareness now is because I want us to be kind to ourselves and learn the art of the pause, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. Be kind to ourselves to find a gentle way to navigate these fluctuations, because the inner critic wants to go in and judge and create drama, and it wants to react and act. It wants to make a story. It wants drama, it wants chaos, it wants to create something out of this very natural experience that we have and make it into something that feels more intense. So not only have you got your own hormones going on, but you've got the ones that are happening because of the thoughts that you think. Have you noticed how your thoughts change throughout your cycle? Yes? No? If you haven't noticed that your thoughts change throughout your cycle, start taking note of when your day one is. Start taking note of the different days within your cycle and see if there's a pattern that starts to correlate between the thoughts that you think and where you are in your cycle. I'm so busy, I don't even know when my cycle is half the time. Yeah. I think one of the easiest ways, Christina, is just to get an app. I do mine on an app. And I think it has really helped me to, especially on a day when you're like, I can't stop crying. My thoughts are really awful and I'm attacking myself. And I'm like, okay, day 27, that makes sense. I'm right on schedule. I'm just going to hibernate and be kind to myself. If you're on the pill, I don't know, my experience of having been on the pill, and this is only my own personal experiences, it was just rage the entire time. But I don't know if that's true for everybody. So all of this is we are creating healthy relationships with ourselves. That's the whole idea of this. So how are your thoughts throughout your cycle? Does it vary whilst you're on the pill? Does it feel different? Investigate, spend time getting to know yourself and your cycle. If you're perimenopausal, you're going to have a similar experience also, but it will just look different. So take some time to get to know what that feels like, and know that if you're having a certain day when it feels like an inexplicable rush of something, then it's very possible that it's to do with perimenopausal symptoms. That being said, I'm not an expert in the menopause, so I would encourage you to do some more research and to find somebody who knows more about it than I do. Okay, so, oops. The aim is to create new neural pathways, because when we create new neural pathways, we have new thoughts available to us. And the way you create new neural pathways is dead simple. You manage what you input into your brain, what you allow as input into your experience, your daily experience, what you read, who you hang out with, what you're thinking about, what you're listening to, how stressed you are, spending time with yourself, how you're relaxing yourself. These are all inputs. And so you have a choice to radically create new neural pathways by working with what you put into your life experience. So the thought cycle works like this. You do see, think something. You feel a range of big emotions. You experience an outcome. We normally use coping mechanisms to numb the feelings. And then we come back to do, see, think something. And this often is an unconscious cycle that happens over and over and over again. And it can feel like it all molds into one and there's no real discernment. It can feel like you have the big emotion go straight to the coping mechanism because you definitely don't want to experience any outcome. Thank you very much. Or it might be that you do, see, think something, and then immediately that association is with, I have to numb myself. I have to do something to shorten that feeling experience completely. Because the inner critic loves to come in anywhere within that thought cycle. But normally it starts right at the beginning. You do, see, think something. Right then, that's where you have the control. That is where you have the ability to affect the most change in your experience and help have a healthy relationship to your inner critic, is right at that beginning point. So you're creating a relationship with yourself, which means that you can start to identify and see and feel and recognize when the inner critic is starting to come in very, very early. It's because it's less challenging to work with it when it's fresh in your mind after you've just woken up than it is after you've compounded it throughout the day. It's still doable, but it takes more effort. And I'm all about least amount of effort to create the biggest amount of change. So we want to break the cycle. And how do we do that? We do it every single day. Now, remember I said that we are conditioned, programmable, malleable beings, which means that what we get to choose what we condition, program, and change ourselves and create. We get that choice. Every day, we get that choice. And that's where the control comes in. That's when that sense of empowerment comes in, because then you are actively choosing to create change and break the circuit instead of being at the mercy or at the mercy of what your thoughts are saying to you and controlling you to do. I know that I can see a few yawns happening. This is a lot of information. 3 of you had said sorry at the same time. I'm not. What I'm doing is just highlighting the fact that this is a lot of information. And this, like I said to you at the beginning, it's going to take some time to integrate all of this. Okay. So you're tired. You're tired. Busy, busy, busy. Have you been on the go for the last 6 years as well, Christina? So we have been conditioned to believe that in order to change our inside world, we need to look externally. This is not how it works. The goal is to improve our relationship we have with ourselves within all 4 of our bodies: the mental body, the emotional body, the physical body, and the spiritual body. And we do that as an inside job. We do that by recognizing that we do have power, we do have control, we do have authority over ourselves. We do have agency over ourselves, which means that we can create change. We can create whatever we want to. We just focus on what we put our mind on what we focus on, what we put our awareness on, what we allow into our worlds. So my question is, where am I outsourcing my power outside of myself? Where am I giving away my thoughts, feeling, experiences to say somebody else that they get to say how I'm feeling, that I'm doing okay or not okay, what I should or shouldn't be doing? These are big questions, aren't they? These are big questions. These are life-changing questions. For example, some of you will know that I was in a very abusive marriage for a really long time. So when you're in an abusive marriage, there are 2 things that happen. The first is I held the role of being disempowered, believed myself to be powerless and helpless, even though I didn't think I was. I did believe that as a core belief. And the other person believed that they knew better than I did about themselves and about myself too. So I would constantly outsource my thoughts, beliefs, and experiences to make sure that they were okay. And then I would ask them, is this all right? What do you think? Is this okay? Should I be doing this? How do I manage this? What should I be doing? It's big, huh? Because when you start taking, I don't even like the phrase taking back control of anything, because you always have had control over yourself. Always. We've just been conditioned to believe that that's not true. So I'm here to support you in reconditioning yourselves to be the amazing, badass, beautiful women that you actually are. Because you are. Even if your inner critic is going, she's not talking about me though, is she? So it's decision time. every day it's decision time. Every single day we have the choice to refocus our attention and awareness and create new thoughts and outcomes. Every single moment of every single day, we have that choice. We have that authority. We have that power every day. Our inner critic is going to tell you that you don't, but it's a crock of shit. You do. Doesn't mean it's always going to be easy. Sometimes I really, really, truly believe my inner critic, and it's only when I call my friend and I say, hey, look, these are the thoughts I'm having, and she laughs at me in the most loving possible way and goes, well, they're not true, are they? And I'm like, snot coming out of my nose, but I believe it. She's like, well, let's just take a moment. Let the snot out, blow your nose, I'll give you a cuddle and let's try again. Do you have anyone in your life like that? Who can hold space for you in that way? If you don't, hard truth time. If you don't, it's likely that you have a lot of inner critic externally in your life. Does that make sense? Do you know what I mean? The gap. We can create a gap between our inner critic thoughts and our expansive thoughts. We can create a gap, and the gap might be the size of the gap between neurons to start off with, and it might grow, and it will grow. It will grow between this inner critic thought and the expansive thought, between that beta brainwaves and the alpha brainwaves. That gap grows. The more focus, the more attention, the more awareness we have on what we're thinking and what we put our focus on, it creates a bigger gap. And if you can ignore your inner critic, go for it. I find that I've put so much validity and so much authority in my inner critic that I don't always find it easy to ignore it. So what I do instead is I distract the hell out of myself and I put my focus on something else. Again, 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 over and over and over again, until I have got myself to a stable place where I no longer am listening or thinking about the inner critic noise. I am thinking about the truth. And within this gap, this inner critic and the experience that we've had with this inner critic is basically everything that we've always known. And so we give it validity. We make it seem like it's true. We make it seem like it is actually fact. But it's not. And what we're now creating are expansive thoughts with this refocusing distraction over and over again. And we're creating something new. And because we haven't quite had enough neural pathways firing in that direction yet, it takes time to trust it. It takes time to believe it. It takes time to listen to it. It takes time to actually believe it's real. And the only thing, and we're going to talk about this more in a minute, but the only thing that stops the current known life experience being something that continues and the new thought experience continuing is, any guesses? Any guesses? Type it in. All right, nobody's writing it in, so I'm going to tell you anyway. Repetition. That's it. Repetition. Whatever we repeat is what we believe and what we create and what is true, what becomes our reality. Whatever we repeat. So what are you repeating? There's a little message that says, if I focus on something else, the little bugger starts creeping back in. Yes, it does. So you keep focusing, keep focusing, keep focusing, keep focusing on something else. And it's like an elastic band. It will keep wanting to ping you back to your inner critic until it snaps, and then that new neural pathway is created. Another way of looking at it is a neural pathway is like an ingrained canyon, and the water has gone down this canyon so many times and created this pathway so many times that the groove is quite deep now. And what we're doing is creating a diversion into a new thought canyon. And sometimes it'll slip back because it's the known experience. But if you imagine that you are constantly keeping a focus and awareness on this new canyon, it will keep rooting itself off. There might be bits that slip back, but ultimately you just need to keep focusing on what's happening and what you want to create. So what does success feel like? Success feels like your thoughts are supporting you and working in your favor. Ooh. Support feels like your thoughts create ease. You acknowledge your fears, but do it anyway. You acknowledge your inner critic, but consciously choose a different experience. Can I change? Can you change? Do you believe that you can change? So I know a couple of you just shook your head like, no way, I can't change. But biologically, you're designed for change. Biologically, everything is geared up in your favor. Biologically, the science and the way that your body is made and created will only reinforce change should you want it. So the only thing that stops it is what you put your focus on. Yeah. So when you focus on it and you don't feel disciplined enough, there's a couple of things that happen. The first is you get so sick and tired of your own bullshit that you say to yourself, I have to do something different because I'm miserable and I'm suffering. And if nothing changes, what happens if between now, today, and this time next year, nothing changes? What happens then? And the other thing is, it doesn't have to be big change. These neural pathways take daily reinforcement, but it can be 5 minutes. It really doesn't take much. It is, if you imagine the way you've got to now is habit stacking, focus stacking, micro moments of experience stacking one on top of each other over and over and over and over again. So now you feel like you're at the top of a mountain that you can't get off of. But each one was made up by micro moments repeatedly done over and over and over again. The inner critic wants you to think that this is an insurmountable experience. It wants to stay alive. Call it a name. What name can she have? Call her something and say, dude, I know you want to be alive, but I need you to come on this journey with me, and we're going to create something healthy that both of us enjoy. Lack of discipline to change for me has been from my addiction to suffering and being a victim. And now you have the awareness, and now you can start habit stacking your focus in the other direction. Just hanging on because I think you're writing something. Yes, I'm so done with my bullshit. Oh my God, the amount of times I have said that to myself is ridiculous. And it's normally at that point. I know that not all of you have had babies, right? But there's that point when you are having a baby and you're in labor and you're like right at the point where it's about to come up and you're like, no thanks. I'm out of here. I'd rather not do this now. I'm done. Thank you very much. Let's go. And it's at that point where you think, I'm so done with this bullshit that I'm leaving. And that's the point where it just tips over and then the baby is born. Yeah. My being a victim is my way of not taking responsibility. So again, you can stay in that cycle and that pattern for as long as you want. That is your choice. Completely and utterly your choice. But at some point, you might decide that you don't want to do that anymore. And so you start putting small things in place to help you stay on track, like get a fantastic coach. You know, somebody who can hold you accountable, somebody who's going to be saying to you over and over again, is that true? Is that really where you want to be going with that? How about try something different? There's a lot of resistance that comes up with change. It's the familiar known experience that we have, and we're afraid of what's on the other side. But we can bypass fear by doing small habit stacking consistently every single day. And you may not think that it amounts to much until it has amounted to a shitload. So let's talk about the solutions. Do not fight your mind, you will never win. So don't join in the fight. This isn't something, we're not trying to fight our inner critic. We're not trying to overpower them. We're not trying to make them something that they're not. We just want to imagine they're like a toddler or a new kitten, and you want to distract them into something else. You want to reroute the focus and the focus of what, and the awareness of what they're thinking and doing. It doesn't have to be a hard slog. The only bit that takes effort is the repetition of habit. So I like this. This is by Byron Katie. You have so many tools and references in the course portal. And one of them is some more information about Byron Katie and what she calls the 4 questions, which I'll talk about in a minute. But there's in the course portal, there's also loads of other resources for you to really start reinforcing these new thoughts and new experiences. There's also a whole heap of interviews of people that have gone through and do this process every single day. And I have interviewed them, young, old, male, female, everybody that I could find that is actively doing this work every day, and they talk about their experience and they share it with you. That's also in the course portal. Okay. I wanted you to know, I wanted you to take away from this knowing that it's not just me that does it, that there are other people out there doing this as well. Okay. Like you're doing it now, officially doing it now too. So 4 questions to find out whether the thought that you're having is true or not. The first one is this thought true? I'm really, really unlikable. Is that true? Nobody likes me. Is that true? My cousin is nodding at me. She's not a reliable witness. Number 2, can you absolutely know this to be true? Number 3, how do you react when you believe that thought? Like I said, if there's any part of you that has a feeling, or the adrenaline starts going and your body is reacting, or anything that starts to become really intense, you know that that thought is not true. It's not true. A true thought feels calm in the body. A true thought feels expansive within your body. A true thought makes you feel like you want to get up and go and do something good, like change. And my favorite question is, who would you be without that thought? Print it out, stick it somewhere that you can see every single day. And anytime you have an inner critic thought comes up, write down these 4 and answer them. Is it true? And go through the list. How far down the road did you get? When you woke up this morning, what thoughts were you stacking? And how far down that road did you get with that thought? Did you go thought, I'm in the bathroom now, thought, I'm in the car now, thought. Oh my God. So how far down the road with that thought did you get? And how big did it go? Did it start off as a small thought and then kind of just exponentially grow and get wider and bigger and more encompassing and like swallow you whole by the end of the day? Or by lunchtime? Or by breakfast time? Sleep, when you sleep is a really good reset. So the moment you wake up, the thought that you're thinking starts to stack. So if you can catch it quickly and change your focus and go, no, 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 I'm going to do something else. I'm going to do something else. I'm going to do something else. Then you give your malleable, changeable neurons the opportunity to create new neural pathways. What we focus our attention on is what grows. This includes people, places, things, and thoughts. So if you're thinking about somebody in your life who is repeatedly doing something that is creating inner critic thoughts, and you have the choice to decide that they don't have to be in your life anymore, I give you permission to make a different choice. And please be kind to yourself on this journey. And I'm going to talk more about this in a minute. Your inner critic is going to tell you you're not doing enough. You're not doing it fast enough. You're not doing it quick enough. You're not doing it perfectly enough. And if you could tattoo on your forehead, I am doing my best and that's enough, that would be great. In fact, I might even do that for an Instagram post and tattoo it on my forehead in indelible ink. I'm not going to actually tattoo it. So daily reinforcement. What are you reinforcing daily? You get to choose. So things like affirmations, and I'm going to talk more about the pause in a minute. Change your focus over and over and over again. Catch it and change it. Create a stillness practice out of your head into the body, even if it's just your hands on the table like we did at the start. Finding ways to relax your stress response. Curate the negativity in your life. You're allowed to choose. And there's an essential oils, there's called the bergamot reset, which is using bergamot essential oil as helping you reset your nervous system, which is going to be, it isn't in there yet, but there's going to be a little guided video of how to do this. And you can do it anytime. Okay. So the pause, you've got an agitated thought. If you add no pause in, you're reinforcing old patterns. If you take an agitated thought and you create a pause, it gives you options for new behaviors and new patterns. And the pause basically is a breath. It can start off as a, okay, I just caught myself having an agitated thought and I want to react. I want to react. I want to do something. I want to go somewhere. I want to experience something, but I'm not going to. I'm going to pause just for a moment. And that's the circuit breaker. I would recommend you have a list of the types of things that you're going to refocus yourself on once you've paused. Because if it's not ready to hand, so let's say you have, you go on the Teachable app and you download the guided visualization that I've put on there and you listen to all of these inspirational people, you've got podcasts ready, you know you've got to hand something you can stick in your ears and help you reinforce new thoughts and new behaviors. Or you've got your bergamot reset, or you're going to go and listen to Abraham Hicks on repeat on YouTube, or you're going to something that's already in place so that you know you don't have to think it when you're in the moment of having an agitated thought. So it's literally just to create a beat between the thought, the feeling, and the action. You can pause to feel gratitude, which might feel like a stretch, but it comes. You pause to hear the messages of our body, because in the agitation, that connection to ourselves dissipates. And you will only really know the proper course of action for something that you want to do or create or experience when you listen inwardly. And you can't do that from an agitated place. It's so much harder. We also pause to stop creating more karma. If you an energetic vomit, right? I think you may have heard this before. But if you're having an experience, what you project out into your environments with your thoughts, words, actions, and feelings is basically what is a law of cause and effect, and the universe is going to mirror that straight back to you. And the pause means that you get to break ancestral patterns. You get to break destructive patterns. You get to create new choices, new options, new possibilities. Pausing will feel vulnerable at first. And then eventually, once you've practiced it, pausing will feel like the greatest and most powerful gift that you give to yourself. The gift of choice. Each thought has a shadow aspect and a gift to it. So when you recognize a shadow limiting thought, which is in the superior and inferior boxes, you'll find the gift within that thought. For example, if I take my time, this is a negative thought. If I take my time, people will think I'm lazy and worthless. And we can reframe that to, I am at my best when I listen to my body and respond to its messages. There's a lot here, isn't there? This is a lot of information, I know. I love each and every one of you so much. And I want you to create the lives that you love from places that feel empowered and strong. And I know this to be the key. Above all, self-compassion. Yes, please. Full acceptance of yourself when recognizing that what you're experiencing is pain and suffering. And so you're going to treat yourself with kindness instead of badly. It's a moment by moment decision to either go towards self-love or self-hate. It really is that simple. You might not feel it at the time, but those are our choices. And above all, to care how you feel. Care how you feel. We start to care for ourselves because we are suffering. This does feel like, when we're listening to our inner critic all the time, it feels like suffering, doesn't it? Does it feel like a bubbly, joyful walk in the park? Yeah, breezy. Hang on, there's a couple of comments here. I'm working on my inner critic hard at the moment as I've taken a massive leap, leaving my job and starting doing something I love. I feel like I'm slowly breaking the cycle and it's starting to feel excited. I say this now, but wait another 2 weeks on my cycle. Yeah. Day by day, moment by moment. Try not to big picture this. It's too much to take in. It's too, if it can feel too insurmountable. But massive well done for taking the leap and doing something you love. That is epic. Really, really good. Oh, I'm so glad you listened to this tonight, and I'm glad you realized how much you needed to hear it. Okay. Boop, boop. Okay, it's not. I'm trying to move the chat box and it's not working. My inner critic is going, you should be able to do this. You used to work in IT. But it's not working. Here we are. There we are. Okay. So practicing compassion, not judging someone's or yours experience as good as bad or bad, recognizing you're in pain and suffering and allowing it to be. Poor sweetheart. Okay, so you may not want to do this, but this is a really powerful thing. When you notice that you are having a really intense time, say to yourself, you poor sweetheart. And it might when you first do it, it might sound really condescending. It might sound like, oh my God, I'm talking to myself like that. That sounds ridiculous. But actually, if you, after a while, if you keep doing it, say, you poor sweetheart, it feels really good. It feels really nurturing. And compassion takes practice until it's ingrained. And for those of you who feel spiritually inclined, please pray, ask for help. You're not alone. Your guides and guardians are there to support you and help you and guide you. And you're allowed to have boundaries. I've got a whole other workshop on boundaries if you want to have a look at that. It's a bit much to go into right now. We are all doing the best. We are all doing our best, and that's enough. So a little note on transformation. We desperately want change and transformation to be linear. What we want is from A to B and as quickly as possible. Yes, please, thank you very much. And when we get there, we'd really like a gold star and a certificate and somebody to pat you on the back and go, I see what you did there, well done. But it doesn't really work like that. What it feels like is a massive jumbled mess when you feel like you're going backwards and forwards, up and down, yes, no, and coming back to zero, and everything in between. But what it really is a spiral. And you may feel like you're coming back to zero, but it's an ever decreasing circle where the contrast that you experience will feel less and less. It will start to feel less intense. It will start to feel more manageable. It will start to feel like you are much more in control, and it will feel much easier. The biggest and most radical change is to set your intention to be kind, compassionate, and loving towards yourself. So next step, take what resonates, leave the rest. We integrate in layers, so it takes time. Just allow it to take its time. I have a whole heap of other courses, masterclasses, workshops on my Teachable website. If you want to go deeper, check out my other courses. You can get, just for you, you can get 15% off with the code InnerCritic15 at checkout. And if you're interested in one-to-one coaching, you can schedule a free discovery call with me, and then let's have a chat and see where we go from there. Thank you. So, questions? Any questions? You can unmute yourself if you want, or you can type it in the chat. There's a lot to process, isn't there? I have created a guided meditation visualization, and that's already in the course portal. You can listen to that every single day to help you create new neural pathways and to imagine that reality in this now moment. I'm also going to upload, which I haven't yet, but I will do. I'm going to upload another recorded meditation, but it's all about affirmations. It's going to be one long affirmation of how incredible we are, to reroute that inner critic into something positive. And you can download that. You can keep it on your computer, keep it on your phone, and just listen to it over and over and over again. Any questions? How are you feeling? A lot to take in?
I'm feeling better than when I started, to be fair. So I'm feeling much more positive. So thank you, Dawn.
You're very welcome. April, I know that you probably had specific question, or you were on here for a specific reason. Did it cover what you were hoping it would cover? And if not, is there a question you would like to ask?
Hello.
Hello.
I got really hungry, so I've been multitasking, cooking a lot.
Good, good.
I'm not sure. So I think my inner critic comes out a lot. She's very subtle. She doesn't cause me daily suffering, and but she does. I know she holds me back, but she comes out a lot with other people. I find that I have high standards for myself, and then in my like intimate relationships, I reflect that onto the other person. And so it's a little bit of a different thing, I guess, because it's not just me then. It's like I'm inflicting my inner critic outwards. But I have a one-to-one with you, so we can dive into that more then.
Sure. You're the fastest, I should have said this at the beginning, it's such a good point, April. The fastest and quickest way to recognize what your inner critic says is to listen to the words that you say to other people, especially your children and your loved ones, your partner, your parents. Whatever you're telling them is normally the kind of thing that you're telling yourself. And then it comes down to the inner child healing. Where is this verbalization? Where is this pain? Where is this critical nature coming from? Because you can really bring it down into its core. And yes, for reprogramming, you want to be creating new neural pathways. But if you want to go into the healing part of it, you want to be looking at your inner child and talking to them and asking them what's making them feel so wounded and painful that they want to talk like this and speak and share and communicate in your most intimate relationships. Okay. There's another comment. Traffic was terrible. That's cool. Is there any chance I could watch again? Where are the meditations that you just mentioned and info for the site? So yes, this is on replay. It will be downloaded and it will be uploaded into the course portal. I will be sending everybody a note within the next 24 hours with access to this information. If you already have a Teachable site and you've already done one of my courses before, then I will just add this to your profile. Within the next 24 hours, you will have that on your Teachable site already. So the meditations will be in there, all of the info, all of this recording, everything will be all in one place. Take your time with this information. Take your time with your healing journeys. Take your time with your inner critic. It will be much more effective if you're kind and compassionate with yourself with these daily refocusings than it will be if you try to squish yourself into something new overnight. Okay, let's just take a moment to close. And if you want to bring your right hand to your heart, close your eyes. And just say to yourself, I love you. I see you. And I really care about you. And then we seal and end this session in the light of wholeness, unity, and truth. And so it is. So much love to each and every one of you on your magnificent journeys. I love you all. Mwah! I'm going to stop the recording now.